agenda are minutes from October 30th. Have a motion on minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from October 30th.
Any, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, corrections, omissions? Then all in favor? All right. Next is Chairman's report. I do have a report this evening. Dr. Girardi and I attended a leadership meeting with Town Administrator Kevin Sweet and Selectman Krill. So basically, I'll just give you a little rundown of the agenda that we covered. We did talk about the special municipal status for school committee members. Kevin understands it, and I think sort of in favor of it, and Jason was acting favorably to it. So we just have to schedule a date for that at an upcoming meeting of the selectmen. We also talked about the Green Meadow Playground Committee and how, with the money that they raised, how should that be utilized? In the sense like, do they just go out and purchase equipment, or do we create a town account, which the town then goes through the procedure of procuring any equipment on that, where that's what they were suggesting to do. That also then sort of led into a discussion about the traffic situation around Green Meadow. We discussed it. Obviously, we're not going to solve all the problems, talk for 20 minutes or so, but it's something where we all realize that there's a situation that probably needs to be addressed to try to do that better. So that will be something that we're looking at down the road for it. We also discussed about the custodial consolidation committee representatives, and that we will select a representative this evening. And we talked about the Coolidge building, how our move is progressing, and they're very interested that when we are out of the building, that that we vote to turn it over as surplus to the town, then they can then get going on whatever procedures to move along with it. I know that there is interest in having a reuse committee put forward on that, but we think that we voted on. I think it's more of a case of preparing warrant articles for town meeting. We believe we have town meeting to establish that committee. So at least we'll prepare so that so basically so that they're not acting on something that they don't actually possess. So this is something we need to do once we make the move. And we also discussed about enrollment capacity for the school system. Really what it comes down to is they would like us to say, give them a number of essentially, what is our maximum capacity, but basically saying, how many students can we absorb without impacting the quality of the education of the students for it, so that they can then, when we have people who want to develop areas, when they start talking, a certain number of housing units, and if it's a very high number, they can say it's like, that's too high because of the impact that it would cause, so that they can have a way of saying no to some people, some development. And if it's the case of 7 units, it's like, that really isn't going to matter. That's well within the range. So that's just sort of the feedback that we got regarding that. So we have that on our agenda for this evening, so we can discuss that further. So that's all I have, Bob.
Yep, and we also set up an upcoming meeting too in January.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's nice, we're having these leadership meetings, and that's good. We're going to have them regularly, so that's awesome.
Sounds like it was productive.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so superintendent's report. I'm super excited to announce that I just received an email today from the College Board. They have placed Maynard High School and the Maynard School Department on the 5th Annual Advanced Placement Honor Roll. Maynard is one of 547 school districts selected in the U.S. and Canada for increasing the number of students taking AP and passing and doing well. So I congratulate the guidance and administration for their hard work towards this accomplishment. I know how much they do every year to do this and to cultivate it, so I'm really pleased with their work. And I wanted to let you know that. On a semi-related topic, the College Board sends the schools the honor roll. They send electronic banners so you can put it on your website. And the school committee has long been interested in improving our web presence, and we have just recently identified a staff member, Jack Colombo, who has expertise to improve our website. So he already put the banner up on the homepage. You can see the teachers already saying how wonderful he is. I'm really excited to have him.
Go, Jack! We love Jack.
It's ringing endorsements, ladies. Be careful going on the public record.
Jack is the technology
Jack's the
department.
best.
He was the technology staff member that we hired at the beginning of the year.
Oh, okay.
When we had gone to a privatized model, it didn't work out, so instead we rehired a staff member because we had one in that position before. But he has a variety of skills, and one of them happens to be working with the web. So in your package, you'll see on the homepage, there's a nice banner that says AP Honor Roll, fifth annual AP Honor Roll recipients. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was another kind of related topic is you'll notice on the high school webpage, it says click here to view a cumulative list of colleges that have accepted MHA students from 2011 2014. So what we do usually is every year we'll post where our students got accepted during that school year. And what happened was we had a parent who called Colleen and said, you know, it might be better if you did a 3-year window to show the variety of colleges that our students get accepted to. And so Colleen did the work and she got it up, and so now, thanks to a parent recommendation, we have this kind of information to just show how many schools our students get accepted to and the variety of schools that they get accepted to. There are everything from state colleges to Ivy League schools, and this is just another example of one more Maynard statistic that we can be proud of. So it's really nice that this is on the web. We're going to improve our web presence, and it was great news to hear how well our students are doing.
Would it make sense or be beneficial to not only put the schools where they got accepted, but to somehow note maybe an asterisk to the schools that they're actually attending?
So the parent said they'd rather know where they got accepted because it shows the quality of acceptances. So that's why we went with that route instead of because I know we had one student who got accepted at 3 different Ivy League schools. So I think there's 2 or 3 Ivy League schools on here, but it may have been one student who got accepted.
Okay.
So that would be additional data if you wanted to. But
Well, the question is how hard does a list become to maintain?
yeah.
To keep it accurate. A list of acceptances is pretty simple. What was your thinking, Bill, behind?
Well, it's just basically knowing where the students actually ended up,
Yeah,
not just where they could be going.
yeah.
So,
But it does show the quality of our instruction when kids are getting accepted to states all over the nation, colleges all over the nation that, are really good colleges. Not that any college isn't good. All colleges are great. But it's nice to see the quality and variety of colleges that our kids get accepted to.
Fantastic.
So it's all great news, and I just wanted to share that with you as part of my superintendent's report tonight. Thank you.
I think you missed one.
Did I?
Or no, well, sorry, Colleen. Villanova.
People being encyclopedic memory of where people.
Well, I didn't want to say it,
That
but
sounded like a humble
Colleen,
brag there, Bill.
I didn't want to say it, but I think we missed Rhode Island College too, only because it's one of my alma maters, and I know a student who went there from Maynard.
Well, it's just that you're going from class of 2011, my older daughter did, and I know the schools that she got accepted to. So,
We'll have to update it. So there are a couple of colleges, I think, but that's,
It's a
the
great
guidance
thing.
is, she got this quickly from guidance today. This all happened today. This is all great news that happened today, so we figured we'd share it with you. Okay.
all right, then moving on to the student representative report. So, Janelle and Connor.
Do you want to go first or no?
No, you go first.
Okay. Maynard High School is at an exciting time this school year. Everyone is preparing for Spirit Week, which includes events such as a class lip sync, a class cheer, and the decorating of a class wall. Another event coming up is a Powder Puff football game, which is being held as a Class of 2017 fundraiser. This will be on November 25th at Alumni Field. Term 2 is just starting. Most fall sports have come to an end. The international students at Maynard High School have taken their MCAS tests this week, and many parents have attended conferences with their child's teachers today.
Janelle did a pretty good job. Also, just to note, Mr. Karajanis is in Shanghai now. He's visiting, giving some presentations to gain interest for the foreign exchange program, and he'll be there for 2 weeks, I think. Is that right? 10 days, yeah. So we'll miss him a little bit in his afternoon announcements, but otherwise we'll be A-okay. Do you guys have any questions for us?
How are preparations for the telethon coming along?
Oh, fantastic. We have many books Acts books, sorry. I think there's just 2 or 3 slots left open. We had a pretty informative meeting last night, where we invited the parents to come and we explained them what their students do during the telethon. And so now we expect that we'll be getting some more donations, some auction items, and it's a month from tomorrow that it starts. So we're really ramping up preparation.
All right, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
All right, next is the FY16 budget.
So Pete's been working on narrowing
Citizens'
down
comments,
some.
Bill?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Citizen comments, any citizen comments? Okay, moving on to,
Okay. So Pete's been trying to just really make sure he refines the numbers to figure out the generality. We haven't really met as a budget subcommittee yet. We've had some discussions about the data we're looking for, and we're going to be meeting soon, but these are just generalities. But Pete's really refined it a little more than the last time I saw it. And so you can see that our contractual obligations, including salaries and transportation, some of the things that we have contracts, we know those are standard, increases are around 3.3%. And then if you look further down, though, what you'll see, unfortunately, is that much like last year, we're looking at a concern with out-of-district tuitions, which could bump up another 1.29%. And so that's where it's going to get to be really challenging, because that doesn't allow us to fund any of the pilot sports programs we just passed, or technology upgrades that will be likely identified when Charles DeBrum finishes working with the technology committee. When he's working on it, they're going to complete a 5-year technology plan and present that to the school committee at some point. So, it's not going to be easy. I guess we just want to give you some general information. The other thing I will say, again on a related note, is that Charles has been working with Peter Martin on a Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Digital Learning Partnership Grant for approximately $80,000 to fund and support network upgrades that will be required when all the districts are mandated to provide the online PARCC test. Now, they're still doing pencil and paper, but eventually it's all going to be online. So I want to thank Charles, who's here tonight.
When are we getting to forget the grant?
Hopefully we'll get the grant, but at least he's trying to find alternate sources for money. I want to thank him for doing that. So he's doing an incredible job, and hopefully we can get that grant, which will help us with our network. So that's all I have. It's really just a general idea of where things are.
well, one thing, and I forgot to mention that at our meeting with Kevin and Jason, that Kevin mentioned that tomorrow he will be sending out the budget advisory, I think it's called budget advisory letter, to sort of say that this is how we should keep the budget within a certain amount for it. So at least we'll have that feedback from it. So we'll see how, what sort of situation we'll be in. The thing is that we do need, I believe, to basically submit a budget by the first of the year. So we have,
A lot of work.
we only have 2 more meetings before the end of the year. So we really need, once we get that information, we really need to come to the next meeting with an outline of what we need and where we are, and maybe a case as core as what is the requested budget from the town side, and I'm assuming that it's going to be what will we need for to maintain services. Yes.
I noticed that freshman basketball says potentially funded by exchange tuitions. My recollection, which may be incorrect, is that we were going to fund that through exchange tuitions.
That's correct. That
Oh.
potentially should have been taken out.
Well,
Oh, well,
But also,
In
Are we
theory.
funding it for this year?
Just for this year.
And that we weren't planning on funding it for FY16.
That's correct.
So that really shouldn't have been either.
Right.
Yeah, so that, oh, okay, because
So
we
can do
were,
that.
that would be funded by exchange tuitions again on a need basis
If we,
next year if we decide, depending all things considered, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
but I think we talked about really not using the exchange funds to fund things like that, so that's why we're saying if we move forward and continue to have freshman basketball, it really should be in the budget, but if it's going to be in the budget, then it's going to impact the total budget number. We really shouldn't rely on that special ed, the exchange tuitions, because, you know.
so are you saying it should be there or shouldn't be there?
No, I think it should be crossed out now, but it's a potential budget problem if we're going to try to fund it next year through our budget and not through the
I
exchange.
thought our
fund.
conversations were that the assumption was it wasn't going to be funded through the budget and it was a need base for this year.
That their numbers, that the following year, the numbers wouldn't make sense
So
to have
hopefully it's,
freshmen.
yeah, so hopefully it's not even an issue.
I mean, I'm assuming it's an issue next year. Kevin under the AD will raise it again. But that it doesn't go into the, I believe, I voted on it with the understanding that it doesn't go into the operating budget.
Maybe I would say the question mark in volleyball, because I mean, right now it's, I'll put it as sort of an intramural type of thing, and to see if the interest can be maintained and, you know, quality can be built up as well. So any more, any additional comments on this? Okay. With that, moving on to district DESI review report.
So Charles is nice enough to come with me, and he and I are going to do a little PowerPoint to explain the process, and then we're going to, should just take a minute to warm up. We're going to explain the process and the major findings of the district report, and then the last few slides, we're also going to review the district review recommendations and some of the responses that the MOP has come up with as far as whether we actually already done these, you know, their current practice already, because we've learned through the exit value that we're changing these things, whether they're recommendations in progress, or whether they're recommendations for future consideration. So, Charles, if you don't mind being my clicker, I don't know what happened to our clicker. But the contents of this presentation are background information about the visit, several details regarding the 6 areas of district strengths, pertinent information about the 4 areas of district challenges and areas for growth, and the district review recommendations, which I kind of just said. The review took place back on January 21st, 2014. The purpose of the review is to help districts strengthen the cycle of continuous improvement, and we're fortunate that we're in a district that really values that, so that works out well for us. The Department of Ed uses 6 standards: leadership and governance, curriculum and instruction, assessment, human resources and professional development, student support, and financial and asset management. And what's interesting is that they only gave us recommendations for 4 of those areas. And by the way, when we go over this, you're going to see that they gave us a lot more commendations than areas of challenge. And in their report, they say, usually we give you more areas of challenge than commendations. So Maynard's a really special place doing a lot of great things, but we can always improve. So we're excited about this feedback. So the district review team, just to give you a little understanding of themselves, from the Department of Ed, they consist of independent contractors, each with an expertise in one of the 6 standards. So one of the gentlemen was a retired superintendent, leadership and governance was his area. One of the staff people on the district review team was a former director of pupil services, like Jill. So that person really examined special ed. So they're all high-quality people who have been in the field for a long time, and now they're independent contractors. The district review team spent 2 days reviewing the existing documentation that we had prepared for them in advance, data and reports before they visited. They spent 4 days visiting the schools, conducting interviews and holding focus groups, and they spent an additional 2 days developing findings and making recommendations. So that's the process that they follow from the state. I think I already said the first bullet, which is it's important to know that they usually prioritize challenges and areas of growth. And in our case, the number of strengths was actually more pages than the number of challenges in the areas of growth, so that was really exciting. And very few, I just want to point out, very few strengths and challenges came as a surprise to us, since most of the information provided to the district review team came directly from teachers, parents, and administrators, and this is such a collaborative district. We all know what our areas of focus are. I mean, the school committee themselves do a great job with the district improvement plan. So, of course, a lot of this isn't going to be a surprise to you. The question is, how do we improve? So we're going to use that to help us out. So I'm going to let Charles talk the next few slides through on the strengths and district strengths, right?
I found a good place to.
Look. Sure. Is this fine?
Yeah.
Am I blocking anyone?
Nope. You were good.
You may
All right, I have an easy part.
a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a very easy part talking about the strengths. One of the things that I think makes it very exciting is that Maynard was, there are great, well-deserved strengths. I've only been a few months here, and I really love the description that Maynard is a real gem. There's so many fantastic things that are happening in this district. And some of the areas, and having all these strengths makes it much easier to look at what some of our challenges are too. So I think it's a nice, it's really nice. So the first thing is in leadership, when we mentioned this before, the district's mission statement reflects the importance of the 21st century skills and expanded student learning opportunities for all students. And as a matter of fact, I think as Bob told you a couple months ago, we're having banners made for each school with the mission statement on it because it is a really fantastic mission statement. And the team noted that the superintendent very effectively communicates his vision, this whole vision, and as well as a process for reaching it. And there are several commendable leadership initiatives. The Spanish immersion program that we know about, the Mass Bay partnership, and of course the one-to-one iPad implementation at the high school. And I was very pleased to see this next strength. The teachers reported a strong commitment to differentiated instruction and personalized learning, and that's wonderful. And then evidence of the global vision seen in Chinese Partnership Initiative. Assessment, and you know that there's a great deal of assessment that goes on, some very wonderful practices. And the district uses a variety of assessments to monitor student progress. You've always seen, at the elementary grades, the elementary schools, DIBELS and DRA used for early literacy. But throughout every grade, there's evidence of unit and teacher-made tests, measuring content knowledge. The recent implementation of the Renaissance Learning in grades 2 to 8, the STAR assessments to assess needs for reteaching or acceleration. The NEASC report, the high school accreditation report that recently came out, they reported that rubrics are aligned to curriculum, and I think this next one is really great. The vast majority of students at the high school understand teacher expectations, and I think that's really important. It's a wonderful strength. And then pre-test, post-test, oral presentations, research papers, the wonderful senior project, and student evaluation evident throughout the district. Okay, did we just skip one? Are we the next?
No,
okay.
That's
Okay. Human resources and professional development. We have so many, in the strengths. This is a fantastic one that not many districts can say this, that the new education evaluation is fully implemented in every single way, which is really great in this district. The district and the Maynard Education Association, fantastic leadership from the Maynard Education Association, by the way, they collaborated on implementing the DESE model, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education model, contract language, and there was a Maynard administration leadership team, association leadership team that worked on that. The principals reported that they're being in classrooms more often, that they're, because of evaluation too, and engaging in rich conversations with teachers, and that's what it's all about, improving student learning by improving instruction and student learning. Teachers reported that they welcome feedback, something that is very, very important. Again, I sort of mentioned this, evaluations are thoroughly conducted and reviews of files, not just what people say, they went through the files to review, revealed 100% compliance with procedures. We should go on the road with that, Bob, that's really good. And the district submitted something called a DDM, a District Determined Measures Plan. I think we've talked a little bit about that. We're in the early processes of district determined measures on how to assess subjects that are not tested on MCAS. Wonderful support, strengths in the whole area of student supports. The BBST, the building-based support teams, the processes in place to identify and respond to both academic and non-academic needs. The academic interventions are evident in each of the 3 schools. Non-academic development stressed through family resource team, the case management team, and various principal meetings. And additional supports, ALS, PALS, a responsive classroom, which is very big in the school district, steps to respect, second step, lunch bunch, social school groups, and so on, support for families. And the district promotes avenues to meet the needs of students who are ready for accelerated work through the Johns Hopkins advanced placement courses and the virtual high school. And they went on another one on just the whole idea of a supportive environment and the strengths that the students at Maynard High School have reported. That Maynard High School is a small, close-knit environment where teachers are approachable and counselors are also approachable, which I think is wonderful. The core values for each of the 3 schools are posted on the website. Behavioral expectations are clearly communicated, which they had talked about through the report. Some very, as I visited classrooms, some very, very high marks on how respectful not only students are to teachers, but how respectful teachers are in students. In fact, it was 100% compliance. I mean, that's amazing. I'm not sure. That's great. And the district review team found clear and consistent evidence of a positive learning environment in all the schools visited. That's right. Okay, that's right. And the finance and asset management, the district has effective budget development, budget development process, provides ample financial and facility resources to meet educational needs of students. We, of course, always think we could have more. The budget is an open, transparent process where people get to participate. The town of Maynard has been financially, the resources to the school to support the schools has been great. Capital expenditures demonstrate a commitment to the educational environment where students learn and instruction takes place, and each of the 3 schools is clean, safe, and well maintained. So when we take a look at this report, I think that you can see that the strengths that are elaborated in this report show that Maynard is in very, very good shape. Now we're going to talk about some areas we could do a little bit better.
So under the leadership area, challenges in area, whoops, back one. That's right.
We'll go back one. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, under the leadership area, challenges and areas for growth. The SMART goals for student performance have not been established. Now again, remember this was January, almost a year ago. So at that time, our staff, even though we have 100% implementation on the evaluation system, we were still learning. So things have changed since then. And I don't want to talk about every single bullet here. I'm going to run through those pretty quick because we're going to talk about the recommendations that will address these sort of issues. But I'm going to run through them. Just to be fair, we talked about all the commendations. Goals in district plan and school improvement plans are not always measurable. Many goals for student learning are not time-based. Some improvement goals are too general. Documents do not necessarily show connection between proposed activities and student learning, and plans with benchmarks and timelines would be best beneficial. And again, this is a learning process for the state. SMART goals, we're trying to make them smarter. Under curriculum and instruction, challenges and areas for growth. Elementary and middle school grades do not have a complete set of curriculum documents. High school curriculum maps are robust, but lack instructional strategies. Need formal plan for curriculum review and revision, not always clear who instructional leaders are. More alignment needed between elementary and middle grade ELA. Many documents lack a person responsible category, and instructional practices that promote high academic achievement are inconsistently implemented. And again, there's a lot of things we've done, like the person responsible. We changed our district improvement plans when we learned about these in the exit interview, so you've already seen some improvements, but I'll get to that stuff later. Just want to share with you, these are all things that all districts are working on, and we're already starting to work on them. Next area, human resources and PD. Challenges and areas for growth are link between professional development and district and school improvement plans are not sufficiently strong. Formal strategy to assess success of professional development efforts in raising student achievement is not evident, and professional development advisory committee has not yet been established. And again, I think we've had such a good relationship with our association that our previous president, our current president, it's always been laid back, so it may not have appeared established, but it was there. I mean, you know, Mike Stevens and Don Holm always worked together, but we're going to expand. We'll talk about that later. We're going to expand it. So, finance and asset management, challenges and areas for growth. So the district does not have a documented facility maintenance plans. Maintenance activities are not clearly defined or assigned to staff. District does not have a documented energy management plan, nor a documented capital improvement plan. Different accounting systems are used by the town and by the district. A lot of these things have already been addressed. We're going to talk about it later. So now we get to the actual recommendations in their report. And I also want to thank Jeff for coming, because the MLT looked at each one of these things and said, how can we help fix this? How can we work on this? What's the appropriate strategy on these strategies? And I think it was Connor who mentioned that Chuck just flew out to meet some new sister schools in China, so he couldn't be here tonight. Donna chipped her tooth. She wanted to be here, and she's at the dentist literally right now. So thank you, Jeff, because all the principals really wanted to help us explain what we've been looking at as far as these recommendations. But Jeff will be here to help us through this as well. I'm sure there are places where he can help us. So under leadership and governance, the Maynard School District, they had several strategies and sub-strategies. The first, and they only had the 4 areas that they addressed. Leadership and governance, curriculum and instruction, human resources, and the finance area. So under leadership and governance, the Maynard School District should adopt a planning process that establishes SMART goals, and the students, and under that, the superintendent should develop a multi-year district improvement plan. So what I've shared with the school committee is what the MLT thought that we could look at and how we could improve this, and we actually did share this with the association too, to get their input. But again, this particular strategy is it's a recommendation that's already in progress. As a result of this recommendation being identified in the exit interview with the district review team in January, the superintendent developed a 3-year academic plan, and that was part of the presentation to the school committee during the district improvement plan presentation this year. As we develop next year's district improvement plan, we can develop a multi-year format that the school committee could approve, so we'll see how we can make it even better next year. They also recommended 5 different strategies. One was that the plan should be created, that's not up here, so you won't see it up here. But one was that the plan should be created with input from key stakeholders and reflect the vision that has been established by the superintendent and school committee. And we've had presentations from the principals who talk about the building improvement plans and how those are developed with the school councils, how they include key stakeholders like students, parents, teachers, administrators, community agencies, and community members. So this is really something that's already in practice, but it's kind of, they give you a list of strategies. Some of those things we are already doing. That's one of the things we're already doing. Another thing that they suggested was that the plan should be developed after an extensive review of current student achievement data and other important measures to determine areas for improvement. And this area is a recommendation in progress. The school committee's had many presentations on the use of MCAS, straight MCAS scores. Last year, Mark was helpful in working with SGP and PPI scores, which is a new and better score. And we plan on doing that even more as we go forward into the future, trying to use those better measures, because the straight scores were measuring different cohorts and they weren't very easy to use. And we've heard earlier that we're working on our DDMs and our local assessments and improving those, and that'll also give us more rich information to work with. And finally, I'm very optimistic that hopefully, they've been saying that the park data will be also useful and that it'll be correlated somehow to the MCAS data. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful that that will be the case, but I am the eternal optimist, so we'll see. The third strategy they suggested was that plans should use a SMART goal format. with specific, strategic, measurable, action-oriented, rigorous, realistic, and results-focused and timed and tracked. This is another recommendation that's in progress. The SMART goal format really was introduced as part of the new evaluation model, and recommending SMART goals as a template for a district and school improvement plan is really a new strategy from the Department of Ed. I was never aware of that. So it's nice they're telling us we should do it, and we'll work on it. But it's a new strategy. It's something that we've never, the old templates at the Department of Ed never had SMART goals. So it's a work in progress. We'll work on it. The fourth strategy that they talked about was that the district improvement plan should be reviewed each year, and activities and benchmarks should be adjusted to meet the current conditions. And this is current practice. I mean, you all know that the Administrative Regulation 103.1 that we just approved recently has a date. You know, annually in June, we discuss the district improvement goals in at a school committee meeting. And as a result of the district improvement, review team exit interview last January, this year the 3 school improvement plans were written on one template. So in the past, again, we've learned how to use these, but you're already reviewing them regularly. So you're already, you know, the school committee really is already doing this. This is current practice on your part. The fifth.
If we're already, what was it then that they were pointing to? Is it something that we changed? I don't know, you lost me here.
I think, I'll be honest with you, I think that some of their strategies are strategies that they would recommend to any school district, and maybe they missed the fact that you're already doing this.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to say it in a nice way. That it might be a canned strategy, but the reality is that you've already been doing it for years. And even with that said, we're looking at ways to improve it. So one of the things we recognized was they wanted consistent documentation. They told us that in January, and when you had your last review of the school improvement plans, this year was the first time you saw every single school improvement plan was in a similar format, and we actually added the person responsible for those goals, which is something that they mentioned in one of those things that we talked about earlier. So anyway, we've already been doing it, we're doing it better. The fifth strategy under this area was the superintendent and school committee should consider aligning some goals in the superintendent's educator plan as part of the district educator's evaluation system with the district improvement goals. And once again, this is something that is current practice. For the last 2 years, since my evaluation has been based on the new evaluation model, there's a professional practice goal, there's a student learning goal, and then 2 of the goals have always been aligned to the district improvement plan. So I'm not, you know, it's just a strategy, but we're already doing it. You're doing it, and you're doing it well. All right, so we'll click on, B is each school should develop school improvement plans. And there was 4 strategies on that. The first strategy was the plan should be developed after an extensive review of current student, should we already review that? Over current student achievement data and other important measures. And again, this is in progress. However, student achievement data has been an ongoing foundation for the school improvement plan and instructional focus for all of our schools. So Jeff can speak to that even though they're recommending that we utilize achievement data when we're developing the school improvement plans, so this is why it's different than the last one. At the Green Meadow, they've had more data to work with. At the Fowler, they've had a lot of data to work with, and we've gotten even more. But that they do go through a process. I mean, you work with your school council, Jeff, to look at the data, to figure out what needs there are in the building, what areas of improvement you need to focus on in your school improvement plans. And you do a nice job of aligning those to the district goals. Each one of our principals does that, follows this process. But it's still a recommendation in progress because hopefully we're getting better data and we're going to improve that. And we've seen a huge increase in the amount of data that we have. So we're hoping that that's going to make it even better. The second goal under B, or the second strategy, would be that the principals should seek the input of their councils and other stakeholders as they conduct their annual plans, and I just kind of covered that. This is current practice. You do have school improvement councils in every single building. You do review the school improvement plans with them. So I think that strategy is pretty well covered. The third strategy they recommended was principals should review their school improvement plans annually with the school committee. Again, this practice happens annually based on Administrative Regulation 103.1, so I think we got that one covered. The fourth strategy is the superintendent and/or district leaders should meet regularly with principals to review progress being made on their goals, especially those that relate to student achievement. And the reality is that the MLT meets usually every other week, and we have a couple of summer workshops, and we do in fact check progress being made on the school improvement goals. It's part of the, one of our agenda items that we often talk about. So it's a common current practice that we're doing that. The fifth strategy was that the principal should use a school improvement plan to inform his or her self-assessment and goal-setting process when creating the educator plan and as evidenced during implementation. And this is currently in practice. The principals and the assistant principals in all three buildings carefully align their goals with the district and school improvement plans. For years before the new evaluation process, the principals focused on district goals of differentiated instruction and providing safe schools, and we know we've heard that in their presentations to you. In addition, the superintendent, I shared with the school committee this year the team administrative goal around student learning and using data. So you're seeing evidence of it in the team goal that the principals and I are sharing around the use of data. The sixth strategy was teachers should consider aligning the goals of their educator plans with school improvement goals. Team goals may be an appropriate opportunity to focus on addressing growth in areas identified in the school improvement plan. And this recommendation is in progress, but for the past 2 years, the district has been working on this recommendation already because of the new evaluation system. The teachers have been guided in their alignment in SMART goals with the school improvement plan. The school improvement plan is distributed and discussed with staff at the time of completion and as an integral component of the beginning of the year packets and meetings that they hold. In addition, teacher teams have worked collaboratively on team goals as a result of professional development that we've had that has suggested that we should have team goals. So these, that's why the administrators are doing it. That's why the teams at the middle school and the teams at Green Meadow have team goals as well. So they could probably speak to it some more, but I'm going to try to run through this, and if you folks want to talk about all those things that you're already doing, I know they're doing it. So, I think we're up to curriculum and instruction. It's your turn, Charles.
My turn.
Oh, we're running through this.
One expression that I've had that is just important to me in my own life is it's always nice to have work to do. I have stayed in education a little longer than the average person, and the reason I do is because it's exciting. And we went through the strengths of our district, and we said, yeah, there's some areas where we can do better. And we're going to boil it down to 2 areas that I think we can do better in Maynard. One is documentation. So many times things are happening in this school or that school or this school, it's happening in this curriculum area and that curriculum area. And we're really trying this year to do a really good job of documenting and making sure we're up to date. The second one is communicating. Oftentimes things happen, or we think things are happening, and we can do a better job. So when we get into some of the curriculum instruction and professional development, a lot of the areas have to do with the need to document more of what's happening, and also the need to communicate better what is happening. So there's an overarching, the curriculum instruction overarching recommendation is the district should clarify roles and responsibilities with regard to leadership of curriculum instruction. The district should continue to develop a quality instructional model and continue to develop a robust set of curriculum maps. And they broke that into 3 sub-goals. And each of the 2 first sub-goals have 2 strategies, and the last one has 4 strategies. And we'll try to summarize them quickly, okay? The first sub-goal is the district should communicate clearly its expectation concerning instructional leadership so that all stakeholders have a common understanding of roles, responsibilities regarding curriculum instruction. And the first strategy that goes along with that is that principals, coaches, and teacher leaders should be given clear guidance regarding their roles, and this information should be communicated so that all staff members have a shared understanding of these roles. And this is a work in progress. I want to say one of the things that I am struck with in Maynard is the whole idea of having team leaders, instructional leaders, grassroots instructional leaders. I really believe that's the way. You just don't do it top down. It's really got to be from the people who are actually doing the instructing, doing the work. And we have had, in Maynard for the last 3 years, there's been a model of instructional leaders. And I see Don couldn't be here tonight, but part of what we do is facilitate the work. It's not as if we do a great deal of work and say, this is what you've got to do. Trying to facilitate the work so that the real power, the real structure is in the teachers themselves who are delivering the curriculum every day. And so this instructional model for the last 3 years has been refined. There's kind of revisions that have made, and that's a work in progress. And it daily, and continue to communicate what we're trying to do. The second strategy under this A is very similar to the first one. Again, it's one of communication, and that is, what is the role of the curriculum director relative to the role of principals and others with responsibility for curriculum? And this is a recommendation in progress. Don and I both spend a lot of time talking, working with teachers, working with principals on helping to, say, facilitate instruction, not being the person who delivers curriculum. The teachers themselves are the ones who do that, and trying to have a true professional learning communities, which we will talk about a little bit later as we go on.
Can I just interrupt you, Jeff? Because the point you made, Charles, was that this is only a 3-year-old model where we had the teacher leaders. Maybe we're going into our 4th year, I guess. But Jeff, I remember 2 years ago, you really, at MLT, you had robust conversations about what do we expect our teacher leaders to do. I have concerns about my teacher leaders. I have concerns about them and what we're asking them to do. And so you were able to refine it a little bit more. But that, I just want to, I don't want to speak for you, but I remember that was a process that you did to make sure that we were really focusing on instruction. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I do remember you and Sharon at the time were very adamant that we really were focused on what we were, and we really made sure we helped refine it for the teacher leaders. So that was one point I was hoping maybe you could talk about. And the other thing is, I know you do a lot of professional development in your early release times, and a lot of this is communicated. It's just, sometimes it's not communicated from building to building or district-wide, but we've talked about some of the good things like DSAC. We know that was going on, but Charles identified that was a weakness in our district. We needed a document that was district-wide. Even though it was happening and we knew good things were happening, we don't always have the best documentation data. That's a historical thing, but we're working on it. So I don't know if you want to just support that about the teacher leaders, how it's a growing model.
Yeah, sure. I mean, several years ago, we did redefine the roles and responsibilities because in past years, teacher leaders were essentially managing their teams, every aspect of teams, meaning student concerns, field trips, curriculum, every big thing and every little thing. And it was all consuming. And we wanted our teacher leaders to be able to be more focused on data and curriculum and instruction. So we took out some of those other variables and we handed those back to the teams. So for example, if somebody's planning a field trip, then the whole team shares in that responsibility. And it's not just on the plate of the teacher leader. And we have come a long way in terms of what the teacher leaders are doing. And a perfect example is something that's happening tomorrow in Fowler in the afternoon, that we're going to be having our 3rd data mining session, which involves the whole staff, including specialists and support staff, working in grade level teams, looking at what's happened over the past year with the STAR testing and what's happened for the last 3 to 4 years with our MCAS testing. And recently, just a few days ago, Mark, who plays a huge role in putting together all of this data, I think I sent it along to Dr. Gardy and Charles today. And I'd be happy to send it along to the school committee. To see this document is really incredible. You'd be pretty much, I think, blown away by the numbers and the amount of information that's on there. And what we're going to be focused on tomorrow at Fowler is ELA. And grade level teams will be looking at what's been happening the last year for STAR and looking at the trends, and with the intention being to identify what kids are making gains, what kids are not, what can we be doing differently and better, what kind of practices can we implement that'll best support all of the kids. So that's really a perfect example of the work that teacher leaders are doing, because at each of the grade level meetings, they will be facilitating the conversations around data.
I just wanted to clear that up, because it really has been, I've seen it morph and get better.
So, can we continue with curriculum instruction again on this whole clarification of roles and responsibilities, the overarching recommendation? The second major recommendation was that the district and each school should plan to develop teachers' capacity to implement the district's emerging instructional model through appropriate professional development support and monitoring. And two recommendations that they included as strategies in order to do this. The first one is that there should be particular emphasis placed on instructional practices that encourage higher order thinking skills and the students' articulation and elaboration of ideas, and as well as formative assessments. I have had a chance to visit some classrooms, and I am struck by how engaged, the sort of engaging model of seeing students working. And for you, when I was first a teacher many years ago, we used to say it was a sage on the stage. The teacher was delivering curriculum to the students, and you see more and more of students being in control of their learning with some help from the teacher, and it's just great to see. So we're still working on what we call the higher order thinking skills, challenging students to think in simple ideas. We used to say, though, that's the right answer, and now you see teachers saying, well, tell me more about this. Tell me what. Just engaging students, getting more from that. And we have some of the professional development practices to try to say what are good models, what are great ways of teaching, what are things that we can strive for, and all of us can grow. So this is definitely a recommendation that is in progress, but lots of things have been happening. And I mentioned one of the strengths, I think, that was mentioned is the whole idea of differentiated instruction, which is a term that's used, but I love to sometimes call it personalized instruction. It's almost prescriptive. You have instruction that meets the needs of that individual, which I think is a huge strength, and it's an ongoing challenge and something the district is working on and we continue to work on.
And I hate to interrupt you, Tom.
Go ahead. You can interrupt me anytime. You're the superintendent.
Well, but
that's the way it goes.
There's some teachers here who make, I don't know, if you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that there are good things you're doing in every building. Talk about differentiated instruction for quite some time at Green Meadow, the Daily Five. I don't know if there's anything that you would want to highlight that we have asked a lot of teachers too. The volume of instructional strategies. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I know our teachers have been such troopers to really do whatever they could possibly do and to work on the professional development. And because we're a district that focuses on continual learning and has lots of professional development days and early release days, not a lot of districts have that commitment. It's because our teachers do it. And I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that or not. If not, we'll just keep moving because I know this is getting to be a very long presentation. But if you want to share anything at any time, feel free to raise your hands.
Okay.
All right? Charles,
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. You're the superintendent. You do whatever you want. I firmly believe in that. The next recommendation in this area is that they start to talk about walkthroughs. And walkthroughs are when a principal walks through a building. That's what we think of walkthroughs. And as part of the new evaluation instrument, there are lots of walkthroughs instead of a principal just coming in and watching 45 minutes. There's lots of walkthroughs, and we also use in this district Teach Point, which is a way of documenting the kinds of things, and teachers have a chance to respond. Because of these walkthroughs, the teachers have reported that there are richer conversations with principals and talking about teaching and learning. This report is going to go a little bit further, and they're going to talk about learning walks, which I'll get to in a minute. If we can do the next thing, I think that it sort of runs into each other. Okay. We'll just hold the learning walks for just a second. We'll do the curriculum maps, and then it gets into learning walks. We do have walkthroughs that happen in the traditional, the new way of doing it. It's been going on for a while, but when a principal walks through a room, talks to a teacher, sends some note, whatever it would be, they're called walkthroughs. But we're going to talk about the recommendation that this team had about learning walks, so we'll just hold that thought for a minute and we'll get back to this in order. But this third kind of goal under the overarching goal in curriculum and clarification is the developing robust curriculum maps for all subjects and establish a cycle for continuous curriculum review. And there actually were 4 strategies for this. This is something we're taking very, very seriously. There are curriculum maps that are all around the district. We have got to do a better job of documenting everything and getting everything in order. It's not an overwhelming task, but it's one that the first sub-recommendation under this strategy was the development of curriculum maps to continue with priority placed on those subjects and grade levels that currently lack them. That is going to be done. This is a serious recommendation. We're glad to get that recommendation. We've got to get a little bit better documentation and making sure that's all done. There are a couple of things that I would like to mention under that is so great in this school district, I absolutely love, is that we have 2 literacy specialists, one at Fowler and one at Green Meadow, and who do a phenomenal job. And we have a math coach who is outstanding. And I think those models are really also, just helping us in this whole idea of the curriculum, the mapping, and the delivery of the subjects. The second part of that whole thing is that we should have a continuous cycle, curriculum review cycle. That is absolutely essential. That can't happen until we get our maps all in order. But we will be planning on deciding when things should be reviewed. Some of that's already going to be. Some of it we have no choice about. For instance, we have curriculum frameworks in science, but right now in science, in addition to the curriculum frameworks, is a whole new generation of science standards. In each area, there's so much that's coming out that we will need automatically to update. So that's going to happen whether we wanted it to or not. But it's a great recommendation.
And in 2013 and 12, the Mass frameworks adopted the Common Core standards, so there were some nuances that changed as well, which is why there are some curriculum maps that need to be updated, because in the last 2 years, the state has taken steps to kind of change the game a little bit.
And ELA and math in particular has been, okay. So the next sort of strategy is that there should be opportunities for ongoing horizontal and vertical alignment. This is very important in our MLT, the Maynard leadership team. There is, always the talk about the different levels, what's going on, from school to school, from grade level to grade level, and what's happening within grade levels too. So the last recommendation, the 4th recommendation under this, is something that's also a nice long-range thing, and it's an absolute recommendation. It's that district leaders should consider putting all curriculum into an electronic platform which could enhance the sharing of grade level curriculum development. That's quite good. That's something that we will continue to work on. I have had some experience with this in the district where I used to work, where there was a good deal of curriculum mapping online, but one thing at a time. We will get there. That's something for future consideration we hope to do.
And the good news is we now have Jack to help us a little bit.
Right, we do. We do. Right. Actually, that's great. So if we move on, this is 2 and 3 are somewhat related: human resources and professional development, and that involves curriculum. And there are. Again, they have a goal, the overarching goal. The district and school leaders should consider ways to more closely link professional development with district and school goals to determine the effectiveness of professional development. And they have some strategies right here. The district should evaluate its professional development program in light of its district improvement plan and school improvement plan. And they had recommendation 1 above. The one strategy goes right along with exactly what this is saying. Professional development offerings should be revised as needed to ensure that they are carefully aligned with district and school goals. And the collaboration that takes place between the principals and the curriculum director and the central office and everybody, the teacher leaders, it's something we continue to need to work on, and it's something that we hope to be doing, and we're taking this recommendation very seriously. The next one is the B, if we go on to B, just because that was the only strategy, right. This is where I left off. I talked a little bit about the district should consider, again, ways to improve closely linked professional development with district and school goals. Here they're going to talk about a learning walk. And notice they say non-evaluative learning walks. So let me tell you what learning walks are about. They're great. fantastic. Unfortunately, it's going to cost a little bit of money because you need to do, you don't just all of a sudden say, hey, teachers, let's go on a learning walk. You need some training and you need some time for subs. Learning walks are part of a professional learning community where teachers and administrators together visit a classroom for a teacher who's very willing, and open to share things. And after they do the learning walk, you sit down, you talk, you strategize. It almost, we have something that Jeff knows something about, the critical friends that Carrie does. It's something along that line where you strategize what worked well, what didn't, and it's non-evaluated. It's not part of someone's evaluation. It's a collegial, professional learning community. It's great. It's a great strategy. That's for future consideration. Really like to see us get there. It's a good recommendation. I'm glad that they made it, and it's an area which I'd really like to see us go. The next one is, in collaboration with the Teachers Association, the superintendent should reestablish a professional development advisory committee to assist in the development of the learning walk process or other professional development planning. That's all set. We've already talked. The professional development committee is going to be expanded so that there are more people on it and it's more visible to people, and be a way of getting some grassroots work and what's happening in professional development. Among other sources of data, staff surveys and the results of student assessments should inform professional development. The results of learning walks as well as students could be used to determine what teachers are learning and where more training is needed. This is an area something to work on to make sure that the professional development that's offered meets the needs of teachers. And in order to find what teachers need, we have to ask teachers what they need and be involved. So we're talking about taking some steps to increase. We have very good collaboration as it is, but really improve the professional learning community so some of these things can happen. So these are things we're taking seriously in MOT and we're going to be working on.
Okay. So the last area was financial and asset management. And so the overarching goal there is that the district should develop formal and documented plans for school facility maintenance, management, energy management, and capital planning. And the first strategy they discuss is the goal of a formal facilities maintenance plan is to maximize and prolong the use life of facility while at the same time providing a safe, clean, well-maintained environment that supports teaching and learning. Elements of the facility maintenance management plan would include but not be limited to involving stakeholders, creating a vision, conducting a facility audit, establishing and identifying needs such as cleanliness, student safety, addressing deferred maintenance, establish priorities, collecting and using data to inform decisions, providing a safe environment, and managing staff and contractors. Whew.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot in one goal.
Yeah.
And this is a work in progress. And again, Pete, you can feel free to jump in at any time, but the facilities manager, we're fortunate that the Board of Selectmen and the school committee worked together collaboratively several years ago to get a facilities manager, and he, along with our lead custodian, brought in a software called School Dude, and that developed a formal maintenance plan to include work order processing, which has made them more efficient. Preventative maintenance activities and corrective maintenance activities have been taking place, and again, this will continue to be developed. We're very fortunate in our district to have a facilities manager who's doing a great job. So that's great. The next one, click, is B. Elements of the energy management plan would include but not be limited to establishing a district policy, tracking energy consumption, electrical, heating, water, and trash, conducting an energy audit, benchmarking, identifying an operations and management action plan, identifying quick and low-cost initiatives, and recognizing and motivating staff. So again, technically, this is current practice because we kind of knew this was an area that we needed, and the facilities manager has been really working with us on this. So we're pretty far ahead on this. The utility and energy consumption has been and continues to be tracked on a monthly basis. Several energy audits have been conducted in the past with a number of energy savings initiatives implemented over the past several years. These initiatives including lighting replacement with more efficient fixtures and bulbs, mechanical upgrades, and a building management system being installed in our elementary school. The new high school is certified as a green building with many energy saving features as well. So a lot of this is current practice because we knew we had to do it as we were building the new high school and we were working with our facilities manager. So a lot of it's already being done. C?
So is it basically that we just don't have a documented plan?
Yeah, a lot of this, if you, relating back to what Charles was saying about the documentation, there's an awful lot of stuff going on, has been going on. We've been tracking utility and energy consumption for the 12-plus years I've been here, okay? We do most of this stuff, but as mentioned before, it isn't documented. It isn't documented clearly enough, and it needs to be, and no excuse, it's just a resource limitation.
In this area, I feel more, a little bit more confident talking about it than the more the education side aspect of it. But in the 5-year plan, is it more looking at we are planning to do this, these are things we're doing kind of thing, or is it a matter of like just keeping record of this is what our energy consumption at each building was this month?
It's a combination of both, okay, and this, I don't want to steal your thunder, but it also spills over to the capital.
Feel free, Pete.
Okay, that, as you know, the capital planning process in the town, including us, is evolving, it's changing, it's gonna be much better. It's not there yet, but it's a lot better now than it was up until a year ago. There's a more formal approach to laying out a multi-year plan for all of the departments, identifying capital projects by fiscal years, and it's fluid, it's going to change. Again, it isn't complete, but it's a lot better than it was, and there's input from schools, town, DPW, myself, and so I think that's really going to help. One thing that Bill had mentioned in your discussion with the town, with the leadership meeting yesterday, and I think it's an item on here, the discussions between the school and town with regard to the custodial, I'll say custodial
Services.
Organization, okay. A lot of these items are going to be part and parcel of that whole discussion. Because if a different model of an organization evolves, these are some of the things that need to be talked about on this committee. What needs to get done, how's it going to get done, who's going to do it, and what does it have to look like is going to be quite different. So again, a lot of the things indicated here have been and are being done. Some aren't. They're not complete. And it has to kind of all pull together. So it literally is a work in progress.
I have a question. Going back to the previous page, I know you had mentioned that we bought the software school do, and Pete's or Greg's using that to coordinate a number of things. I know we have the sort of the long-range plan for the high school, because that building was just built and the MSB requirements, so now that comes along. Do we have that now for Fowler and Green Meadow?
No.
We've been surprised by roof repairs and things like that in the past. So that's one thing I know that I've been asking for a year or two, and that's part of what I read in this plan. Do we have a plan for making sure we have a 10 to 15-year sight line on what the large improvements are going to be as these buildings continue to age?
Not a complete plan, a partial plan. And again, what's going to help is when we can get a clearly defined organization that doesn't exist now. Okay, we have a facility manager, we have a good facility manager. He has no budget and no staff. Okay. So as part of the discussion we're going to be having with the town on the organizational structure, these things need to be put on the table. Because you're right, you've been talking about this for a while, and it's stuff that really should get done, and it's a question, who is going to do it, who can do it, when's it going to get done, and there's no organization to support it right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of, still kind of piecemeal. So I think this committee that hopefully will be formed is going to be very important to the town and schools.
Yeah.
for all of this, because this also applies to the town. I mean, these type of activities.
Right.
and
No,
maintenance,
I know it's a joint activity, and I know we've been sort of struggling with some of our capital improvement, and,
Right.
you know, the volunteer group was challenging and that, and I know that town hall's been working on that for a while.
Right.
I just feel that, you know, just budgetarily, we shouldn't be being surprised by things like boilers and roofs. I mean, we should be able to look at that and say, okay, in 3 years, we know that Fowler's going to need, you know, X and Y parts of the roofs. We've got, you know, you know, it's going to cost approximately this, and we should be able to,
Right.
to plan so that we don't have to go out to bond or whatever. I mean, you know all this, we've
Yeah.
been talking about it. So, okay, well, look, I'm hoping that our recent activities really help that develop.
Yeah, and you just touched on it, on C, the elements of the capital plan. I remember my first 2 years in the district, I would come and we'd go to those volunteer meetings on capital, and, you know, at town hall, they'd have a capital plan, but we never saw any documentation. At least now, with this more formal process, we actually had the assistant town administrator come to a meeting, share with us documentation, it's laid out nicely. So we are moving in these, a lot of these things are a work in progress, which is great. And you know, I think you heard throughout the presentation, everything is a work in progress, or something that we're already doing and doing well, or it's something that we definitely want to do in the future, but we got to get some of these works in progress done before we can do it in the future. And so we can click the off button. That's my presentation, but if you have any more questions of Charles and I, or the teachers and Jeff in regards to some more specific questions, I'm sure we could all answer those for you.
I said, this is great, thanks so much. It's a lot to digest, reading and then sitting down and hearing some of it. It's nice to see the commendations. I think we've got a lot of great things going on, and I know how open and willing people in the district have been to changing how we do things, to being reflective about their practice, and that's great. I mean, I think Maynard really puts the sort of lifelong learning for adults and students into action, which is really important. The two things that I pulled out of this that I just want to highlight that I saw in terms of the recommendations that I thought were really important was the instructional strategies and some of the percentages on the instructional strategies in terms of the higher order thinking and all that. I think is a place I would really like to see us emphasize. Because that just seems to me to be really where the rubber meets the road, and whatever we can do to continue to support teachers. It looks like there's a lot of good stuff going on, and we also have some areas where we could really use some work and some development. And then the other place I wanted to highlight was strategies for evaluating success of programs to raise student achievement. And that to me has the budgetary component too, because when we invest in things like, you know, the math coach or the ELA coach or the Renaissance Learning and things like that, it's a significant financial investment from the town. I'd like us to have some clearly established measures so we can say, like, all right, well, did that work? And if it, you know, worked in these ways, didn't work in those ways, like how do we as a school committee go back to the community and say your investment is paying off? I mean, that's like from our role facing outward, and then your role facing inward is like, you know, are we getting the results and whatever we want from the effort that we're putting into it, and if not, how do we need to change? And so I think too, this ties in for me some of the conversations I've had with some folks recently too around budget, and just saying, you know, like it isn't always just a, you know, add, but also reevaluating and saying, like, actually we've got this program here and it's not working. Let's lump it. And, or whatever, I mean, you know, you guys know what you're doing there, but not to just sort of just keep adding, but to really think budgetarily and say, is it working or isn't it? Is it worth the investment? And so I know just as that's one reason too why I really want to link our assessment to the budget. Like, you know, the budget, I think should really needs to be driven by our assessment data. And so the more we can begin to tighten some of that up, the better. So those are the two things that really highlight for me in terms of the areas of focus. I just thought I'd throw out.
Yeah.
Any comments from Justin or Jamal?
You want to go first? Sure, yeah, I'd say I like everything that was brought forward by this, and I think it brings up some good points about that. Some of the challenges, things to work on to make everything better. in the district, and I think that the communication is important, and having that continuity between the schools and having those open lines should make things easier. And the fact that it looks like a lot of these practices that they were recommending are already taking place, but just not having the right documentation and everything in place to show that goes to the importance of having those, compliance measures set up correctly. But I think that's, overall, a lot of positive information and some good suggestions to work forward.
I want to go back to the curriculum and assessment section, and similar to how Amy was sort of pulling out things that could have potential budgetary impact, I'm really quite troubled about the absence of curriculum maps in certain areas. And more importantly, if we need to develop those and we need to support the teams and the administration with developing them, that feels like that has a pretty significant budgetary impact when we're considering additional coaches that may be needed, an increase in a curriculum director position that might be called for as well. So I think I would really like to drill down on this a little bit further so that we know what kind of supports we need to continue the progress that's already being made. But also, similar to what Amy was saying, make sure that we're using those resources as wisely as possible. So that's something I think I would like to explore going forward.
Do you want to comment on that?
No, I agree.
Thank you.
Just figured that's your area, so.
Right. It's not that curriculum maps do exist all over the places. We've got to get the some areas where we've got to do a better job at that. It's not that we're without.
And that being said, I mean, as a teacher, I want to support the teachers in the district where my children are being educated to be able to work smarter and not harder.
Right.
And that means providing them with the things that they need to do their job efficiently. And if, trying to put their hands on a curriculum map is like going on a scavenger hunt, and that's just not acceptable.
Right. Yeah, that's very well said.
Yeah, sorry, if I could just add, I think they did note that our ELA curriculum maps are robust.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the word they used. Our math curriculum maps are not in place like that, and I think some of that reflects the fact that we have a literacy coach at Fowler and at Green Meadow. We've had those positions for approximately 5 years, whereas we've had essentially we have a math coach, Terry Morrison, who's fabulous, but she's here 50% of the time.
Yeah.
So she's well aware of the need for those math curriculum maps, but some of that is just the time, being able to devote that to. So in terms of the budget, an identified need could be a full-time math coach in each of the buildings. I think that would really lend itself to someone overseeing the work that's needed to be done with curriculum mapping in the area of math.
Question I have about is what type of time frame are we looking at to basically address all the recommendations?
I think each recommendation is in varying degrees of completion, and I guess as we work on our goals going into next year, that we could review those and figure out how we want to integrate those into our annual goals, and then work on a 3-year plan,
Okay.
like they recommend.
Okay. All right. Any further questions from the committee or from the audience? Okay. Then moving on to the next topic. Approval of communications to the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board concerning school space availability.
So-
Bob,
Yeah, the school committee had previously has in the past quite a bit, extensively reviewed NASDAQ enrollment projections, Bill's PowerPoint and comparisons of NASDAQ enrollment projections with his own local data projections, the estimated space for enrollment increase document that I created for the school committee, and I actually had provided the assistant town administrator with these documents in an email because he had asked some clarifying questions, which I've shared with the school committee. And he found those questions to be very helpful, and he has shared them with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. However, the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board have asked that the school committee write a letter that states that these documents are accurate and that they are based on the, we would share with them the NASDAQ data, Bill's local data, the assessment that I prepared, as a letter with a formal explanation about what all this data means. So I'm thinking that tonight it might be good for the school committee to consider what information they would like to convey in the letter, and then we could start working on a draft maybe for the next school committee meeting, and have more discussions on it. And I didn't know if there would be a school committee member who would want to work with me on that draft. What you might want to discuss, what you'd like to, what you think about the letter. So that's kind of the plan I'm laying out.
I have some ideas, but I don't always have to go first.
Start at your end.
Go for it.
Ladies first.
All right.
My mommy raised me right.
Yeah, so good. I hear that. I mean, for me, I think one thing, and I don't know how this will be written or what we need to do, but and Bob and I have had a couple of conversations about this already. It isn't just a matter of capacity necessarily in terms. I mean, it is because there's the capital expense if we sort of bust out of our seams and having to add on to Green Meadow or Fowler or whatever. I mean, there's that sort of there is the physical capacity does matter. To the extent that we've been increasing our capacity recently, we've been doing it in ways that A, we have control over, so we can say, oops, don't have room this year or can't afford it this year. And B, they often come with revenue. So our international students, for example, come and they each bring $15,000 with them, even though because they fit into already existing spaces, it doesn't necessarily cost us $15,000 to provide that education. So we have a net gain. School choice is a little bit similar. They come with, I don't know, $5,000 or whatever, $1,000 in their state tuition, depending upon their needs. And again, we can say no. When we start talking about housing development, we don't have that capacity to say no. They live here, their hours, we own them no matter what. And that's good and that's right. But I think there's a little bit of a difference there because we don't have any control over that, and they tend to they come with the taxes that they provide through whatever kind of housing they live in. So I guess one thing I'd like to explore and to play around with a little bit is asking what different types of developments provide different types of tax bases. So, because I know we had some vocal support at the last town meeting for increasing Maynard's 40B development, which is sort of low-income and affordable housing. And I do not know the answers to these questions right now. Dawn's done a little bit of digging, and I haven't had a chance to follow her links. But is there a difference in the tax revenue from, let's say, a rental apartment building versus 3 or 4 bedroom houses? Like what types of taxes do you reap from that type of development? And then how many students versus what's the sort of average tax bill for, I don't know, a 2,000 square foot 3 to 4 bedroom home with 2 baths versus the likely, for the same amount of space, then that size tax bill for the likely amount of students that you're going to project. Because to me, there's sort of an operating budget impact as well that we need to consider, because it's not just sort of a matter of, do the students fit, but at some point, let's say if we exceed 25 students per kindergarten, you have to add another class. There are hours we can't say no. Are we going to have tax revenue, corresponding tax revenue to cover those increased expenses? I don't feel like I said that very eloquently, but I'd like to do a little bit of research so it isn't necessarily just a simple number, but that it's also tied to budget in some way. I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. I'm thinking out loud.
If I could, I kind of want to grab onto a couple of the threads that you started to explore, because for me, this is really a 2-part exercise. There's the work that was done by Bill very well to sort of project our growth. And more importantly, I really appreciate the boards or the town side coming to us and saying, what sort of growth do you think you can handle and still be able to provide a quality education? So I appreciate the dialogue here, but I really want to urge caution in this process, because the second part of this goes beyond the mathematical exercise. When you start considering the quality of the educational impact to, adding another 100 students to our student population, or another 200 students to our student population. And I want to think specifically in the realms of student services. When you consider that the state average is somewhere between 17 and 19% of all students in the public schools qualify for special education, that has a significant budget driver when you consider the ramifications and the quality of the educational program. So I really think that we as a group need to consider what is a number that says this is the number of students that we can absolutely absorb from a mathematical exercise. But we really need to have a larger conversation about the number of students that we can realistically absorb and still provide a quality education to every single one of those students, both in the general education classroom and for students who may qualify for special education services as well. Because when you start doing the math, there's a huge difference between 17 to 20 extra special education students and 34 to 40 extra special education students scattered throughout the district. Because for me, it keeps coming back to quality of education, and that's driven by how much financial resources do we have. Which brings me back to the second thread that I heard you explore was, we need revenue in this town. You know, if we're talking about continued development, then we as a town and a school system need to talk about ways that we as a community can pay for these things. Because, and this was something you started to explore, what's the tax impact between apartment style living, 40B housing, and single family home development?
And I'm not making
or
an
commercial
argument
real estate.
because I don't know.
Or
I
commercial
haven't-
real estate.
Well, that's true. I haven't looked into it, so I'm not making any statements at this point. I don't know. I'm raising that question.
But I
Yeah.
think that's why we need to be exceedingly cautious as we sign off on something that we're then passing across to the town side, saying this is the number that we can realistically absorb and not have it bust our budget. Or how can we pay for this extra student population that we have as a result? So I just want to. I don't want to pump the brakes, but I want to urge caution here.
Yeah, when you
and
think
be
about
very thoughtful.
17 to 20% of 200, if that's going to increase the special ed cost, that's always a significant cost. So that's a really good nuance that you brought into it.
I'm worried about these spiraling out of district costs, and I think that's another conversation that we need to have. Because one extra out of district tuition in this town on our budget, you know, that can have a significant impact. So I'm just urging caution at this point, and we need to be really thoughtful.
Yeah, I'd say my biggest hesitation in going forward with this is similar to what Amy and Justin echoed already, but what you have here is this multifaceted issue where we're already, you know, we're a small district as it is, we're spread pretty thin. Obviously, it's a question of, you know, increased cost versus increased revenue. So if we bring, you know, more students in, we increase our capacity. We're saying that it's, you know, obviously the revenue is increased from that, different types of housing, things like that. But the concern would be, I think we really need to take our time and just look specifically at the impact that the different types of development would have that comes along with it. Like Justin said, you can't just look strictly at the numbers and say, okay, it's not, you know, strictly a mathematical problem. It goes deeper than that. So, you know, my concern is that I want to make sure that we don't make a rash decision, that we do our due diligence and go through and really research this, because this is something that could have a long-lasting impact on the district.
And with that in mind, do we have any, is the town up against any deadlines or time? I mean, on the one hand, we want to do our due diligence and not rush to an answer, yet on the other hand, I want to be sensitive if there are developments going on in the town side. They don't have to wait for a number forever.
From leadership meeting, just, I mean, we weren't talking with anybody from the planning board at that meeting, but Jason, formerly planning board member, so he's understandable of the issues and things. I think what they're looking for is basically to have a set number to say that if some developer or groups of developers come in and say, we want to build 500 units here and 400 units here, we can say, whoa.
Yeah.
That's going to impact the schools, you know, in a very bad way. We need to limit the size of the project, or we need to change the mix. And that's one of the issues though, is Amy pointed out that, well, the difference between single-family homes or apartments, I feel that that's not really, excuse me, that's not really our call in a sense that that's really the planning board's area of responsibility. I mean, we can look at it, we can make suggestions, but that's really their call for the mix of development. I mean, that's
My point is that it's not just a single number saying this is how many students we can absorb, but that number is also tied then to a budgetary number, right? So then the planning board or the board of selectmen could say, X development project is likely to yield, such and such dollars in taxes, and so we're having more students come in than the taxes from that development. Our projections are more students than the taxes are likely to cover in terms of costs. Does that make sense? Does that clarify, or do you not, or does that still not?
It becomes a very difficult issue or subject to model and to view. I mean, you could just take an average to say that, okay, you build so many units and, every 2.3 units you get one kid. Do a certain cost there. But if you look more at an individual, I'll just take my own household, for example. We moved in, 20-some years ago. We lived in our house for 6 years before, paying taxes. Probably not getting as much in services as we're paying for taxes because we didn't have a child in the school system. 7th year, we had a child in the school system. We, 3 years later, had another one in the school system. So now, the tide is turning a little bit differently. We're getting back more than we're paying into it because of the education costs. And at some point, we break even, and then at another point, basically is we're benefiting more than we're actually paying.
Right.
But after next year, things start going back again.
Right.
Because, well, no, but they're not going to be in the school system.
Right.
So that extra taxes that go in is basically supporting, police, fire, and trash pickup.
Right.
So, and public works. So it's sort of thing where it's like the amount I'm paying being divided in the budget is less. So it's sort of like now I'm putting back money back into the system as opposed to taking it out from having my kids educated. This is a cycle that's going to repeat itself through every property that exists currently and in the future.
Right.
So it's hard to say at any one time, oh, this is going to cost us too much to do it. It's like, well, at some point, yeah, if the people who live there have children that go to the school system, yeah, what they pay in taxes in that time frame is less than what it costs for educating that child or for children. But when you get to the point when they don't have children living there, then they're paying more interest. So I feel it kind of comes out as a wash when you're looking at that. Then arguments like, well, how big of families are people having? Obviously, a family who has 6 kids is going to take a lot from this, the system, and not really that much in tax-wise comparatively to somebody who either doesn't have children or only has one child. So when we're looking at, what kind of makeup, I think it's just going down a dark hole that's really don't really get a straight answer at the end. I think to Jamal's point, I think having a set number as to, okay, yeah, this is the capacity. We could have, I think from what Bob said, just over 2,000 students, but we'd be sort of packing them in like quarterly, and we don't want that. But it's like based on our current number of around 1,450, right? We haven't gotten it.
We're right around there.
How much on that would we absorb? And we could probably make the sort of the corollary as, okay, how much would we absorb if the administration isn't invalid? So we found another source for that as well. And to do that. And also make the assumption that whatever number of students that are coming in are distributed evenly across the grade areas.
Of course. Which might not happen.
Which that's what I'm saying. I raised that. I mean, worst case scenario was that some area gets developed, they build X hundreds of units, people move in, and they all have first graders.
Then we got a problem.
Yeah.
Green Meadows is not going to fit that many first
I
graders.
think you did a really fantastic job of eloquently laying out the argument. But what it boils down to for me is quality of educational programming. And at this point, we have no new revenue coming into this town. And we are continuing to try to pay for things at an ever increasing cost from roughly the same pool of money. And when I moved into this town several years ago, 129 was on the horizon and several other things. And the status quo has remained the status quo. So the reason that I am preaching caution is because I think we need to be very careful that we are not looking at a situation where we cannot pay for a quality education for all of the students that live in this town. So there is a real number and then there's a practical number. And I feel like we need to be very careful that we clearly identify those two things.
So I'm thinking though, what I recommended was maybe one or two school committee members might like to work with me on a draft that we could then present at the next school committee meeting. Maybe that would be a good way to.
I mean, since I've done the enrollment calculation, I mean, I think I should be involved with it. Or if one of the other members wants to be involved with it, we'd be happy to work.
Do you want to take that quality education portion?
Sure.
I volunteer you for that.
Yeah,
I
why
think you
not?
stated it very nicely.
It's something I feel really strongly about.
Well, I'm glad that you do. I mean, I think those are the right questions to be asking, and it's the quality education programming is also linked to revenue and to budget. I mean, I appreciate the challenges in figuring that out, and I appreciate that, there's no one calculus that'll necessarily work, and I don't in any way want to, have families who have lots of children. I mean,
Children are good. Children are good.
We own who is here, and we welcome them, and, we need to be financially prudent in that sense, because I think in every department our operating budgets we have to be careful. And I'd like that reflected in the message that we send out.
Well, just thinking along those lines though, but if there's something that if we assume 20 additional children, and also helps us say one grade level.
Okay.
So there would mean that we need an additional teacher. Assuming that they're all coming from different households, and the average tax bill from those households is $5,000, which I'm not quite sure what the median tax bill in town is, but probably the figure maybe roughly there. That would mean revenue coming in. I mean, if they were new structures, that means that would be $100,000 of revenue coming into town, and the new teacher is $50K plus medical or something. So I mean, numbers in that regard work out.
Well, not all the tax money.
But all
goes to
that
the
tax
school.
money goes there.
I mean, it's a lot more complicated
Yeah.
calculation than
And
that.
then we're continuing the age-old saga of bearing the tax burden on the backs of the homeowners. And that's a cycle that we really need to explore as a town as well. So I feel like we're getting into sort of a circular argument here, because the same way you're quantifying certain things, I don't know how I would quantify what a quality educational result looks like. And I feel like there's some objectivity to this conversation. But I wanted to be abundantly clear, like, I feel really uncomfortable about putting a concrete number on something as hard to quantify but extremely important as a quality education. So
I just want to, I understand your concerns, and I really appreciate that. What I think though is that from the planning board, planning and development side, they want is basically say how much is enough. So basically they can say there is a certain number that they don't want anymore, or try to rein it in so it doesn't go too far, so that we aren't getting into the range that it really severely impacts that. So it's sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, where is that number that we have to work out?
yeah, and I mean that's why I'm really appreciative of the fact that we're having a dialogue about this, because the town side is acknowledging that there is a break point for us, and I'm very, very thankful for this conversation. We just have to be very thoughtful in our response.
So at some point, Bob, you, me, and Justin will,
Gotta love emails. You can break
Yeah,
drafts
you
and
can
revise
prepare-
them and.
or at least make, and also I think it'd probably be helpful to kind of meet
Oh,
for
sure.
a little while.
That'd be great.
One day, to go through some things and, review the numbers, so we're all literally on the same page.
Colleen will doodle us so we can find out a time when we can all meet. That's the new software thing, doodles. So Justin, Colleen will doodle us so we can figure out when our schedules will
Okay,
meet.
so hopefully then by the next meeting, we'll have a document
Draft is working.
to hopefully maybe vote on or at least get feedback from. So that Jason can sort of take back that probably by the end of the calendar year or before, we'll have something in hand.
Is that sufficient for you? Is that?
Well, I mean, it's an ongoing process right now. There are 2 smaller developments and potentially 2 larger developments that are on the horizon. So this number, I can understand just in your hesitance. And obviously Bill and Bob and I talked about this and know that there's a number, there's a practical number, there's what you refer to as the quality educational number. I think I called it the comfortable number.
Yeah.
What we know you can make work. We know that, to Bob's point yesterday was at one time there were about 650 kids in Green Meadow.
Yeah.
That the building was ready to burst.
Right.
That, in my opinion, would not be a favorable environment to try and educate children. And that's not what, we're not looking for, I would say, we're not looking for, how many can we jam into the building. It's not a strict, how many can we fit? It's how many can we fit and educate. And what it's really what it's designed to be is more of an arrow in the quiver of the folks trying to make decisions on these developments. To your point, commercial would be great. Retail would be terrific. It has no impact on the schools, and it would generate more tax money than the residential. Unfortunately, the town's just not, at this point, for whatever reason, not really willing to accept that. We're converting over several commercial parcels to residential parcels. So we're already kind of losing. To Bill's point, if you have 2 kids, even in some of these brand new $500,000 homes, we're probably taking it on the chin for the second year. It is a bigger discussion. It is a bigger argument. Right now, this is it's more of to give the planning board and board of selectmen and even the school department an idea of kind of what we know we can take. We get 6 units that are all 3 bedrooms. Chances are we could end up maybe 12 kids out. That's probably that's not going to kill us. But again, if it's
Unless they only add district placements.
But if we were to get a large development that comes in and is talking about what their split's going to be, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. In that scenario, we're probably not going to see a lot of children. If we were to go a 40B room, 40B would require 3 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms will bring children. And that's some of the reluctance from some of us on the different boards about the 40B options. There are a lot of moving parts, and I know we're somewhat asking for something a little bit simplified.
Okay.
But I think we understand that it's not simple.
Yeah.
And so I think Bob, my point was, give us a number, put in caveats, really frame it. I really don't want just for you to throw me a number. We need some explanation of how that number works, or doesn't.
Well, I just want to echo Justin's comments on campus and thank you enough for, asking and having the dialogue and being open. And and foreseeing the complexity in that, so we couldn't ask for anything more. It's tremendously helpful from our perspective, so thank you.
Okay. So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Okay. There's no more comments, and we'll move to the next item. Appointment of school committee member to the custodial consolidations committee. And if there's no objection, I'd actually like to ask Justin to serve on that. Simply the fact of him being a teacher, trying to understand what the needs in the school for, the duties of custodian in the sense that, involved in it, which I'm not sure if on the town side they may fully appreciate. I think it could be beneficial.
I know Andrew said it wasn't going to be a lot of meetings, that he feels that there's models out there, like, I think Lexington, right? Yeah, that they actually have the model. So he's going to show us models. We talked about having a principal there because principals had some concerns, because we ask custodians to do more than just clean. They do a lot for us. We have custodians who do grounds. So actually, we talked about actually inviting the DPW, because if the town can consolidate into a very efficient system, it could be a lot better. And so I think, but I don't think it's going to be a lot of meetings, because Andrew's a very efficient guy, and he did say he had a model from Lexington and a couple of other communities in the state that have already done this, and he'd like to share that with the committee and get input, and then see if they could bring forward a model to the Board of Selectmen and school committee, because both groups would have to approve it. So it's a long process, but the committee work should be pretty brief.
Okay. What I found out also at our meeting yesterday was that there's only one custodian on the town side. So kind of, in my mind, kind of simplifies things, I guess. There's an individual who works at the police station but has duties in case there is anyone in lockup. So that's sort of a unique position. So it's really just an individual who's responsible for town hall, but is, what did Kevin say? He's classified as a
Maintenance.
He's a mechanic rather than a
building mechanic, as opposed to a custodian. So there's some other issues. So maybe they work to their advantage.
So really, when we're framing the conversation, we're talking about our people, for lack of a better label.
And again, we have custodians who are really doing
Yeah.
DPW work. So it makes sense for the town to be more efficient, and I think it makes sense to, at the very least, explore it.
Okay. Done.
All right, so Justin will be our representative for that. Okay, going into policies for second reading. Colleen had mentioned to me earlier today that we had expected some input on the policies related to health and wellness, and that's also including the medication for students, injuries, allergies from the school nurse and or one of the school nurses, and we didn't get that back. So what I suggest is that we table those policies for today and have them at the next meeting. Hopefully we'll have input from that, because I'm not sure if her comments were related to the policies or to the administrative regulations. But for the remaining of them, from 13, 15, 202, 205, 250, 271, and 351, the only changes that have been added from the last meeting is just simply where words that have been capitalized have been made lowercase. It's okay. As Amy had pointed out. So if you just want to look through them briefly, and then I'll accept
clarified
it.
some of the days, or some of the grades too.
That for which one? That would be in policies we're not considering.
Oh, the wellness?
Wellness, because I'm not sure if the nurse has any input to that
Oh,
one,
yeah,
so you
yeah.
might just hold off on that one.
Okay. So do you need a motion to accept the numbers that you just listed?
Yes, please.
So I make a motion that we accept policies 15, 13, 202, 205, 250, 271, 351. And 351 is the end there?
Yes.
And 351, as written.
A second.
All right. Any comments? All in favor? All right. And we'll get back into. Next, we are on citizen comments again. Any comments? Okay. Members' questions, comments, questions? Are we all talked out? And it's not even 9 o'clock.
We must be working harder and faster.
Go catch the end of the Bruins Canadians game.
There you go.
All right, then.
Last night was a
if
little
there are
bit
no comments or questions, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right.